Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James here at the studios at ProPix TV in Vancouver, British Columbia. Tonight we're going to take a look at some news headlines that are making waves across Canada and the US today. And with that said, of course, we know that there are so many different topics to discuss. We invite you to make sure that you add your comments in terms of discussion topics that you would like to address on the show, that you would like us to cover, and story ideas that we can use in upcoming episodes. If you're watching the rebroadcast of the program, by all means, make sure that you leave your comments below. We do actually read them all, and we do take them into account when we're deciding on the topics to be covered in special episodes and in the nightly live chats. So again, make sure that you feel free to put your ideas and your comments in the comment section, and don't forget that we invite you to also post where you're watching from. We love to know the far-reaching areas in which the program is being enjoyed, or that you are interacting with us from. Now, let's start north of the border, where the Canadian political scene is, to put it mildly, dynamic. The 2025 federal election is looming, and the ripples from Mark Carney's involvement are turning into very big waves. It's not just how his presence is reshaping the entire political landscape, but the impacts that it's having on the party itself. Now, the polls are showing shifts, particularly that the Liberals are experiencing a resurgence, and that the NDP's struggle to hold on to their footing in BC is still an issue. We also see that the Conservatives are losing support in light of their close alignment to the Trump campaign promises and style of running the campaign. And this is biting Pierre Poilievre in the ass, because he's losing that whole momentum that he had. Since Trump has taken office in the last 8 weeks, we've seen a big decline in the support for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party across Canada. Now, we will see, because, again, it is politics. Anything can change at any time, and we will be watching it closely. And now let's not forget the elephant in the room, and that is the U.S. trade policies. The shadow of those policies, especially those enacted during Trump's years, both current and the one that he served in his previous term. Again, the shadow of those policies are heavily influencing the election narrative here in Canada. How Canadian politicians are positioning themselves in response is a key indicator of where this election is heading to. Now, speaking of the U.S., trade remains a sore point. We're seeing businesses in Canada seriously considering moving south, enticed by what they see or perceive as a more favorable condition for the business. And we're talking big corporations here. This huge concern for the Canadian economy is real, and it's something our politicians are going to have to face and deal with head on. In other news, we've tragically seen the devastating avalanche in British Columbia that was in southeast part of the province, and that was something that cost several lives. We believe that there were 3 heliskiers that were lost in that powerful act of nature. Our hearts go out to the families affected. On a more concerning note, the reports of crime tourists are deeply troubling. It's a complex issue, and it's putting a strain on local law enforcement. That is, people traveling out of their local cities and communities, or people coming in across the border to commit crimes and to basically disappear into the darkness once again. And it makes it much tougher for the law enforcement in those communities to investigate and prosecute those crimes. Now, as we look to the south again, if you are planning to travel to the United States, please be aware of updated travel advisories, especially if you're planning an extended stay, and also make sure that you are aware of new rules and regulations for extended stays in the U.S., such as registering and so forth. Now, Keep in mind that if you are looking at an extended stay in the U.S. or if you are operating businesses in the U.S., that your information is gathered into the U.S. databases. And as such, Elon Musk has access to those databases off and on, depending on the mood of the White House and the opposition by the courts. But again, the Trump administration seems to be really going against and giving a slap in the face to the judicial system in the United States at this time, trying to, circumvent the systems in place in order to get his way on deportations, among many other issues. And as of most recently, he has invoked more Secrets Acts. In terms of information about the deportations that happened after, or the failure to return planes to the United States that were in midair after the judgment or the temporary order was issued by the judge. And again, he's trying to utilize these acts that are meant for wartime, and he is trying to declare that they are in a war with immigration and the gangs, and it is just really overreaching, and we'll have to watch and see how that plays out within the courts. But I do believe that the Trump administration is going to wear the patience of the courts very thin, and I think that we're going to start to see a lot more pushback in the coming months from the courts and the judiciary. With that said, of course, we've all heard about the big scandal in the United States about certain people using an online app, I believe it was called Signal, and they are using that to communicate war plans and secrets that should not be made public, and they somehow included a reporter and editor in the conversation. Now, Trump's opinion is that they did nothing wrong, that it's just a silly mistake that happened, that there wasn't top secret material discussed, and then turned around and attacked the publication and the editor and reporter that was involved in the chat. He also said that the chat was so boring that that individual left the chat early. But actually, what was the realistic reason and the true reason why he left, according to himself, is that he was realizing that this was top secret information, that it was a legitimate chat, and that he probably shouldn't be included in it. And then again, the Trump administration is hinting that, there was nefarious actions that got him into this chat room, when it actually appears that he was invited in by individuals within the group chat, including Michael Waltz, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, among others. And there was the sensitive information of actions being taken against the Houthis in Yemen. And that should be a very serious national security concern. On the international stage, it should also be a very big concern that they don't see it as a big issue, that confidential and secret information was being potentially traded or exchanged on a publicly available platform. Regardless as to the level of encryption on the Signal service and platform, it is not made to be at government level encryption or government level secure. So again, it should be a major concern, even though the Trump administration is downplaying the seriousness. But the Five Eyes intelligence gathering group, including the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, that should be a big concern when it comes to the U.S. now not seeing a big concern over the potential hazards of using apps like Signal to talk about national security or international war plans. That is a major concern on the international stage, no matter how much it gets downplayed within the United States of America. The simple fact is that it should not have happened and that there should be a full investigation. Now, if you want to take this to a bigger point, and a bigger joke of the matter is that instead of having the FBI or the Secret Service or the military or any of the many agencies that the United States has to investigate these type of incidents, instead they've turned to Elon Musk. So it turns out that Elon Musk is not only in charge of Doge, but it appears that he is now running investigations on cybersecurity on behalf of the United States government. That is a laughable situation situation in the fact that, of course, Elon Musk is not going to find the Trump administration responsible, liable, or admit that they put confidential information at risk of being secured by foreign entities. And to take it a step further, certain individuals were actually in Russia, the Kremlin, at the time of this chat going on. And it is a publicly available chat. It is not a government encrypted app that offers any level of security guarantees. And that should be concerning to every American and every citizen outside of the U.S. When we also look at the political climate down there, we'll say that it is still charged. The aftershocks of the Trump administration are still being felt. And the upcoming, issues that are facing the courts to really add some type of definition and clarity on issues seems to be even worse, because now they are talking about the possibility, and this was Speaker of the House Johnson talking about just doing away with the district courts. Instead of actually respecting the law and the judiciary, they want to abandon it and get rid of it. It is just ridiculous, the levels that they are reaching. And you look at issues such as in Texas, where they are looking to instill the Ten Commandments in every classroom against the will of many, because of the fact that it crosses the line between church and state. It is not responsible or even respectful of people of all different faiths that call the United States home, that make the United States as great as it is, or at least was. Now, this is simple fact. I personally believe that there is no place in the schools to combine church and state. The Ten Commandments should not be in the schools for the simple fact that it alienates many of the other ethnicities and religious groups. I do believe that there is a place for that when you look at the options of Christian or Catholic or Muslim, Khalsa schools, all the private schools, the faith-based schools. Sure, they can have that. But in the public school system, I do not believe that they should be mandating that the Ten Commandments are put in there. And it's going to be a government authorized interpretation or, dummied down version of the Ten Commandments. And the worst part is that most U.S. politicians wouldn't know the Ten Commandments if they bit them in the ass, let alone to actually respect and follow the Ten Commandments. The politicians are pushing them on the children when they can't even figure them out themselves and live by them. And then you take into the point of the constitutional value that these are potentially in conflict with the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, I say if the U.S. wants to go through a battle and go around and just ignore the Constitution, why don't they start with getting guns out of the schools instead of the Ten Commandments in? That, to me, would be more useful use, or a more appropriate use of time. Get the guns and the violence out of schools instead of worrying about getting the Ten Commandments in. To me, would be a much more logical way to think. Now, when we look at other issues and other concerns happening throughout the United States, there's a lot of claims of big investment coming from big corporations that Donald Trump is touting to be a big sign of economic strength. And there's also concerning development, though, that the bankruptcy of 23andMe, the DNA site, that's just a stark reminder that even seemingly stable companies can face significant challenges in this economic climate. And with the trade wars going on across all borders around the world, being initiated by the United States, it's going to get tougher and tougher for the business community in many ways. Now, the Trump administration may be bragging about all of this money being saved and all of this money that's being invested into the United States, but at the end of the day, we don't know what is fact and what is fiction, because the more we look into things, the less it is realistic or credible, and that, of course, is also a big concern. Now, there are, of course, other issues going on in the U.S., and that is outside of politics. The ongoing discussions about increase in weather conditions and extreme weather conditions across the U.S. and the ongoing effects of climate change. There's also a lot of discussion about the rise of AI and potential effects on the workforce. So again, there's many different areas of conversation for those who are just sick and tired of hearing about the political end. So let's take a look at those two topics for a few minutes, and we'll talk first about AI. Now, we know that AI, or the intelligence systems that are being trained, have a lot of learning to do. The machine learning and the data sets that are fed in can also, though, turn these systems into having bias. And also when the AI systems, such as ChatGPT or, Grok, and others, when they fail to have adequate data that's been inputted for the machines to learn from, they have what are called hallucinations. And that means that AI systems can sometimes just generate made up facts and information. So again, that can be very harmful, especially for people who are relying on it for different information sources of health, wellness, medical, all of that. So you've got to be very careful in using AI. Some people are putting too much faith in it, while others are very skeptical, and rightfully so. Now, when you also look at the benefits and the drawbacks of AI, the list is many. We could go on for, hours and hours. We've done several shows in the past that you can find in our archives on the different industries that are benefiting from AI, but also the risks and some negative stories that have come out of the use of AI. So again, it's about balance. It's about using AI systems as a tool, not a replacement. But of course, people are worried about AI replacing individuals when it comes to employment and certain industries. Prime example of that would be the entertainment industry. People are concerned that generative AI can replace actors, that it can replace background actors and special effects teams, writing teams. So again, there are legitimate concerns about the use of AI, and that is where the world is coming together. Many politicians and governments are working to find ethical and responsible regulations circling the AI use in various industries. Other areas where we've seen huge benefits but also risk is in the healthcare industry, in the medical field, in research and development. And again, it's about using the AI as a tool but not relying on it too much, because of the fact that it is still learning in itself. And if you are using AI, it is very important that you double check what information is generated to ensure its accuracy and its risk level. You don't want to be releasing information from AI without verifying what it's come up with. So again, it's not a replacement for your work. It is a tool to help you work smarter and faster. So just keep that in mind. Some people are very fearful of AI, and that is understandable as well. That AI can be a fearful technology for people, and it's no different than if we go back to the 70s and 80s when computers were coming more mainstream, and people were concerned about computers taking over the world. And again, it didn't materialize. Instead, what happened is that we began to use computers to really as a tool for our daily lives, whether that was at work or in our personal lives. And people started to warm up to the technology and found the benefits. And I'm not saying that AI or computers or any other technology at the start is perfect. It never is, and sometimes it never will be. But again, if you're using it responsibly and ethically, I think that AI has a great potential within the world today. Now, in full disclosure, as the President and CEO of ProPix Canada Media, I also oversee ProPix Canada AI, and that's one of our brands as well. So again, just in full disclosure, we are involved in the AI training systems as well as consulting for government and business. So just in full disclosure, I thought that was important to push out to you. Now, let's go to the other story that we touched on a few minutes ago, and that was the changing weather. Now, we know that there has been a perceived increase in disasters, in just weather patterns that are destructive, that cause loss of life. And this does have to do with the effects of climate change. Now, we can deny it and debate it all day long, but the realistic look at it is that the environment, the climate is changing. Now, whether or not the effects on of humans on climate change is as bad as it is stated is the debatable factor. Not that there is change happening, because let's face it, if the planet wasn't getting warmer, if there wasn't climate change, we would have never have escaped the ice age. So again, we have to look at it from a realistic point of view. Now, there are many things that we can do to improve the climate, to make it better, to slow the impacts of climate change and our impact on the environment around us. But at the end of the day, are we really hitting these targets? Are we putting in place realistic targets to meet the timelines in which we want to see? Now, let's take a look at electric vehicles as a prime example. Now, the cost and the resources that it takes in order to make a single electric vehicle can be debated on the long-term benefits, but also whether or not if we were to transition to exclusively electric vehicles within the time frame laid out, is the infrastructure there? Are the power generation options there? What has to happen in order to be able to feed that electricity volume through the grids that are currently in place, and what needs to be added? And those are big questions, because you don't just go out in a year and lay out all new wire transmission or transmission lines for electricity. You don't go out within 1 year period or a 2 year or even a 6 year period sometimes and build power generation stations, whether that is based on nuclear power or on wind generating electricity or on hydroelectricity. I mean, all of these things take vast amounts of infrastructure investment and time, and that is a big concern as well. Now, as we look at other stories around the world, we can talk about many. And one of the issues that I have is the information coming out, whether it's from the White House, whether it's from foreign governments, and all of such. We need to be able to define the influence of foreign entities, whether that is foreign agents of foreign governments or corporate influencers and so forth. We need to be able to understand that although the internet is a vast and powerful tool to research and to gain information, to gain news information and reports, it can also be a major source of misinformation, disinformation, and influence, not only in elections, but in many different aspects of life. A lot of countries, such as India, who spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on bots and misinformation campaigns on the internet, they make it appear as though people in your community are, debating big issues, and they throw facts that really aren't facts. It's misinformation or out and out lies. And they throw that in the mix to try to influence the attitudes of people, but also to create division within communities, societies, and even across nations. And we've seen that when the India government launched a major campaign against the Canadian government when they were accused of potential involvement in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, British Columbia. The India government launched a major campaign against Canada and really filled the world with disinformation that Canada spent a lot of time, resources, and money to counter and to get the truth out there. And that is a serious problem in today's society. Now, if you are relying on the internet and other, technology to gain your information, to gain your news, to gain what's happening in the world, then just make sure that you're getting it from credible sources. But also, before you form a diehard's opinion on something, make sure that you also follow up and do your research, because even information that seems as though it's coming from credible sources could be very well, in disguise from those foreign actors. We see a lot of online media channels that purport to be CTV in Canada, or, CNN in the States, or, BBC, ITV, Al Jazeera English. A lot of them that pretend to be those networks or affiliated to those networks that are actually indeed the accounts that are linked to foreign agencies from Israel, from China, from Russia, from Pakistan, from India. So again, be careful about what information you're getting. Don't take it as the gospel word. When you see an ABC News logo, double check and make sure that it is in fact a credible news source and that there are other sources reporting the same facts. So again, just be careful of that. Other than that, folks, that is another episode of Live Chat with James, an abbreviated version to cover the headlines that are happening across Canada and throughout the U.S. If you do have topic ideas or story ideas, by all means, leave them in the comment section. We're always happy to read the comments, to bring content and narrated stories about different issues that you want to learn about or that are impacting your community. So again, that's what the comment section is for us to interact together and for you to be a part of the program. You have been watching another Live Chat with James, coming to you from the studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe and be careful out there, folks.